A bottom longline is a type of fishing gear that samples large fishes living near the sea floor. We are the Mississippi State University Marine Fisheries Ecology Lab, and we conduct a long-term bottom longline monitoring program to learn about these large fishes of the north-central Gulf of Mexico. Our bottom longline comprises 100 hooks baited with Atlantic mackerel. These hooks are called gangins and consist of a 12-foot piece of 700-pound test monofilament, beginning with a clip and ending in a large circle hook. To set the gear, we attach buoys to one end of a reel of 1,200-pound test monofilament, the main line, and release the buoys and main line into the water. Then, we attach a heavy weight to the line to mark the beginning of the bottom long line. As our captains drive the boat forward, we clip gangins to the main line at 60-foot intervals. Once all the gangins are in the water, we attach another weight to mark the end of the bottom long line. To finish the set, we add buoys to the line and cut the line from the reel. After the long line soaks for 1 hour, it's time to haul. We pull the buoys onto the boat, reattach the long line to the main line, and start to retrieve the gear. All fishes that we can safely handle are brought on board for data collection and tagging. Data collection involves assessing the length, weight, sex, maturity, and overall health of the animal. We may also collect muscle tissue, otoliths, fin clips, and blood samples. Finally, we tag and release animals. The entire process from boarding a shark to releasing it takes less than 90 seconds. Sometimes we catch a shark that is too large to simply lift out of the water. When this happens, we all work together to either use a landing sling to lift the shark on board for tagging, or bring the shark close to the boat and tag it using a long pole. After we tag these large sharks, we quickly and safely release them from the long line. Our bottom longline monitoring program provides important data used to manage fisheries for these species and valuable information that will help us conserve populations of sharks and other fishes for generations to come.
When conducting bottom longline surveys on the E.O. Wilson, this is the gear that you're typically going to use. So I'm going to go over their names really quickly and a few of their functions, but you're going to see what these guys actually do out in the field. So up here we have your disinfecting wipes, WD-40, which is used to stop your gear from rusting, Clorox bleach, and ethanol. We have your safety glasses, which are very important. You have to wear glasses out on the boat. It could be your sunglasses or eyeglasses if you don't want to wear safety glasses. We also have your roto tags and M tags, which I'll talk about in a little bit. A leather punch, which is used to make a hole in the dorsal fin of small sharks to apply your roto tag. In terms of collecting specimens like mussel samples, you're going to put the mussel samples in these whirl packs. Fin clips go in these fin clip vials. And we also have cryo vials right over here. When it comes to actually working up a specimen, this is the gear that we're typically going to use. We have a serrated knife, a chisel, which is used to extract otoliths from bony fish, and we have mono cutters. But actually, one of these is going to be a mono cutter, so where you're cutting the monofilament line, and another one is going to be used solely for fin clips, and it'll say fin clip on it because you want to keep that blade's edge as sharp as possible. We have transect tape as well, a wide variety of tape, including regular tape, electrical tape, and duct tape. We have forceps, scalpel, and blade. And this is the container that is used to house both your roto tags and your M tags. We have needle nose pliers, 2 types of scales, a 10 kilogram and a 20 kilogram, depending on how big your specimens are. We also have 35 if we need them. Bait knives, otolith envelopes, and lastly, a rubber band. Well, lots of rubber bands. Some other gear that we use, we have a saw, a slop rag, which is used to help clean up messes, Ziploc bags. This is your sharps box. This is where you put any sharp objects, any metal, glass. Do not close it because once you close it, you can never open it again. Shrimp gloves. This is used for when you're working up a specimen and you're cutting them open, determining the sex. It just helps get a lot of the gunk off of you. These are Atlas gloves. You really like to wear these when you are racking. And Marcus's personal favorite is the fingerless Michael Jackson Atlas gloves. We also have cheesecloth. Always bring sunscreen, some mints to help prevent seasickness, scissors, pencil and pen, zip ties for your specimens, nitrile gloves, and Kimtech wipes.
What we're doing right now is we're baiting. So we mentioned we use that Atlantic mackerel. It's the same bait we use every single time. Let me pull you a full one. It's a beautiful little fish. What we do is we cut them in half and we bait our circle hooks with them. We bait in the exact same manner to ensure that they stay on the hook. So you'll take the hook, wrap it around, and bait it just like that. So see how it's through the bait twice? Then we put the hook down so that whoever is dealing with the gear doesn't stab themselves. And you'll see Catherine and Brian are now experts, and they're just going through it as quick as possible. So I'm going to jump in and help Catherine here out. So we've got 50 in each barrel. So we put out 100 gangins. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I know it's kind of loud. We are pretty efficient. We move as quick as possible. So that means even while we're on the move, we're still working. So how this next part is going to work is Marcus is going to put out the gear. While he's putting that gear out, I'm going to explain what's going on and how that works. If you guys have any questions, again, feel free to ask. Angela can ask me them. What? What's our bait? Atlantic mackerel. So remember we talked about that a little bit yesterday? So we standardize it the same way. So just like Marcus mentioned in his 2012 paper and that discussion yesterday, that they removed Atlantic mackerel from the stomach contents of any sharp-nosed sharks that they tested or they examined. That's because that's the bait, right? So that's not actually part of what they eat. It's also not a local species. So we can feel confident that if we take it out of the equation, we're not taking something else out of their stomachs that they may or may not be eating. So this bait is the same bait we've been using since Noah started these long lines years ago. And you'll see it's just, we kind of go into a automatic move. No, you're good, Catherine. Here, you want to rotate it? I don't know, you get your beautiful face in there. So it's just the same exact motion every time. Sorry? Great question. So if the bait's not local, where do we get it from? There's a wholesale supplier in Rhode Island. And we get it shipped down every single year. And we store it in this big walk-in freezer. It comes in these big blocks. It's wild caught, so it's kind of cool because every once in a while we'll get a piece and it's got bite marks on it from something else that was trying to eat it. Sometimes we get random other fish in here. This is our beautiful handiwork. We check to make sure every single hook is baited. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. So once this gear is set, we're on a moving boat with an open back. We want to make sure everything is secure as possible. So we'll tuck it out of the way, but so that it's not going to fly off if we're not paying attention to it. When we start to set the gear, we're going to give it a rinse down, and that helps all these gangents come out. Actually, let me show you guys. So if you see here, see it says set and haul. I'm doing my best Vanna White impression here. So when Catherine was bringing in the gear, she started at haul and worked her way towards set. Marcus is about to set the gear, so he's going to start at set and work his way to haul. That's how we can keep. You're good. You got it. That's how we can keep 100 hooks that are each 12 feet long organized. It's a little rougher today than we were anticipating, so we're doing a little dancing. Yeah, so good point. Right, so we've got a high flyer buoy and we've got, I call it a carrot. And basically we put one on a loop and we've given some mono, we've given some space to put the other one on. That is helpful because this gear is completely detached from the boat. So when the captains go to catch it, they'll take the boat hook and have plenty of space to grab the gear to haul it back up. Let's see, we shouldn't be far from setting out that gear. So we hook it up, and once we're on station, once the captain says we're good to go, we'll kick it over. Hopefully you can hear, but I'll come out back here. We'll kick the buoy over, we'll give it some space to essentially estimate the depth of the water column, and then we'll hook on weight. Right, yeah, can you grab those? Thank you. So see, we're slowing down here. We're getting close to the station. So Marcus is tossing that buoy out. So like I mentioned, we just want to rinse down these gangents so that they're wet, so they slide through his hand a little bit easier. So what he's doing is he's just put that mono through our block, our setting post. Brian's gonna help him. We're gonna give that gear a little bit of time to stretch out. Ooh, you can see Dolphin Island Bridge right there. If that gives anybody an indication of our relative location here. We've kind of gone northwest from our past station. So
Do you visit the same stations every time? Like, do y'all have set stations each time?
We have set stations every year. So that randomized sampling design we talked about, I think that was just yesterday. Man, we talked about a lot yesterday. So we have a couple projects that we're working on. One of our projects is a long-term. It's where that data came from, that frontier study we talked about yesterday. That's all offshore work in the Alabama Repermit Zone. What we're doing today is we're doing what's called CMAP. So it's a nearshore sampling survey throughout the Gulf that we've got several partners that collect data from their respective states. So it's not the exact same station every time, but it's in the same general region that's randomly chosen. In this case, for this particular project, spring, summer, and fall. So I'm gonna walk you through what Marcus is doing right now. So you saw him put out the buoy, you saw him put out the weight, and he yelled anchor. That's so that the captains know that there's a weight been dropped, and our data person knows that she can go collect some data if she needs to. What he's doing, Brian, will you watch those weights, please? What he's doing is, remember I mentioned that he's gonna start at the set end? So he's not even looking behind himself, which is another reason why we want those hooks down so he doesn't accidentally get stabbed. he's tossing that gangin. So remember, a gangin is a 12-foot long piece of 750-pound test monofilament. It's got a tuna clip on one end and a 15-aught circle hook on the other. Same gear every single time. We standardize it. I've made thousands of gangins and we make them the same way every single time. So what he's doing is they're baited with Atlantic mackerel, right? So he's throwing that out in the water. He's getting it far away from himself so that if it decides to pull or something, he can let go and he's not going to go with it. So safety reasons, he throws it in the water first. He's then clipping them in approximately 60-foot intervals. So length of a school bus from the pitcher's mound to home plate, etc. And when you've set a lot of these gears, you just get a feel to estimate that distance. So overall, this whole long line is going to go out for 1 nautical mile, which is slightly longer than a regular mile. You may be hearing in the up top, I'm not sure if it's catching it, Diana is yelling, and you'll see Marcus pauses. See right there? He doesn't want to set the gear on the knot for a couple reasons. One, if he clips it on the knot and he's not aware of it, there is a big chance that that's going to pull him into the water. He's not prepared for it. Two, when that gear is coming up, if it's not, that is really difficult for the captains to quickly and safely remove it. So we have all these knots built in the line because of all of the sets that we've been doing. So every time we're hauling in the gear, we're creating a new knot. And over time, eventually it gets too knotty, and we have to replace it. But we try to keep it going as long as we can for several factors. So you'll see every single time he clips it on with that tuna clip, he's barely holding on and then he's immediately letting go. Let me actually grab a tuna clip here. So this is what I mean by a tuna clip. So you'll see he has his thumb behind it. It's more of just kind of getting the right anchorage. You don't necessarily need a bunch of hand strength. You need the right angle. So it opens like that, and see how it just clips on, clip on, clip on. And when you've done hundreds of these, you start to get a feel for how to do it quickly and efficiently, just like how Marcus is setting right now. So you'll see he's really close to the setting post every single time he puts a gangin on. And that's because that's where the most tension is. So it's easier to use these tuna clips to clip onto something, with a lot of tension than it is looser. So as soon as that gear comes through the block, he's clipping it on. Clip on, let go. Clip on, let go.
Daniel asked, does the tuna clip fix the gangin on the monoline or can it slide around?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Daniel. So he asked, does the tuna clip stay put once it's on the long line? Theoretically, yes, if it's a brand new tuna clip. But I mean, if you have a big shark on, it's going to pull that around. So once we try to reuse our gear as often as we can, once these tuna clips kind of start to wear through, then we cash them, we retire them, we get new ones, because that is a problem, right? If you get one shark on and it runs down the line and it gets everything in this mess, it's a big deal for the captains to deal with, and it's just not safe. So hypothetically, yes, they're holding onto the lines, but nature has different plans at times. That's a good question. But for his reason, his safety, you'll see that's why he's immediately letting go. Because if it is meant to hold, if it's a tuna clip, right? So if it's meant to hold, if something like a tuna hits the line, it's certainly going to take him with it. So you'll notice as soon as it's on the line, he lets go. So he doesn't go with it. A little bit bumpy today. That's why he's got his foot in between the block, so he can kind of use that as security. Did those get watered down? Okay, perfect. So you see our wonderful interns never stop moving. So they've been swapping out. He put a middle weight down. Just kind of a break. Also make sure that the gear stays on the bottom the whole time. So while we have this meantime, they're going to be scrubbing this so that those fish guts don't become a permanent fixture on these buckets here, on these barrels. Our gangin barrels.
Mm-hmm. How many people do you typically have on the boat to put the long line out and have everything done?
Yeah.
Do it less than 3 or 4 people?
Yeah, really good question. So how many crew members do we need to efficiently run our gear? Well, by Coast Guard standards, if we're out on this vessel for more than 8 hours at a time, which usually we are, it's anywhere between 12 to 16 hours on average, we have to have 2 captains. So they're the ones that run the boat. They help haul in the gear, or they haul in the gear. So there's always our 2 captains, and usually we are really lucky with Jonathan and Diana or any of the other captains at the Sea Lab. For us, depends on what project we're doing, but for a regular bottom long line, what you see here is usually what we bring. So it's either myself and Marcus or myself and Matt, who you guys saw on Zoom the other day, and our 2 interns helping out. So we'll train them up throughout the year, and by the end of the year, they can run this gear without us, and then they leave us, and we're very sad. But in the meantime, we get to work with them and help get them comfortable helping out with the gear. So 4 people is usually great. That means we can have 2 people on fish, 1 person on data, 1 person racking. And it ends up working pretty well. It's not a very big boat. Not sure if you guys can tell. So we're not trying to load it up with a ton of people. We're stepping on each other or anything like that. So you'll notice too, Marcus essentially kind of goes into this robotics motion, right? We're doing the same thing every single time. We're standardizing the gear. It takes about 15 minutes on average to set the gear. And it takes anywhere between like 30 minutes to however long we get fish on to haul the gear back in the water. So we use that to kind of estimate how many stations we think we can get in a day, knowing that the gear has to soak for 1 full hour. So these cannonball weights that Brian's preparing, we've got 20 pounds on either end and a 15-pound in the middle. We've got them fixed onto a tuna clip just like all the other gear. You got numbers, Catherine? Thank you.
So what numbers is Catherine taking at the beginning of the end?
Yeah, really good question. So you guys have probably heard me saying like, who's got numbers, who's got numbers? Once we put that gear in the water, we need to write down our start set. So we write down the time, we write down our lat and our long, so our location information, and we write down our depth. What Catherine's doing now is that we're at the end of our set. So she's going to record those same parameters. Once we haul, we'll do the same thing again. And that basically gives us an estimation of, okay, how long is it going to take us to do the haul? Where exactly were we? What's our depth? Those kind of things. So we take all these measurements, all these metrics in the same manner every single time. Oh, I'm holding the buoys. I guess I should probably go work. Anchor! Hey, Brian, can you watch this line? Yeah. Exactly. So just make sure it doesn't get under the boat. So Marcus is tying a knot. Same loop you saw. Yeah, hold it. Bring it in a little bit. So see how it's slack? There you go. Bring it out of the block, Brian. Yeah, out of the block. Right there? Yeah, exactly.